joining us for today's Webinar Wednesday, brought to you by UK University Search. Today, we're going to be talking about how to choose a university, a choice that's been made somewhat more difficult recently with the cancellation of open days and fairs. But not to worry, this webinar will contain lots of information to help you decide which university you'd like to attend in the future. We have 4 fantastic panelists joining us today to discuss different topics and answer your questions. First up, we have Alex Hickman from the University of Winchester, who will be talking about how to choose a course. Then we'll pass over to Kate Billerman from the University of Huddersfield to talk about picking a location. Next up is Gavin Quinn from the University of Glasgow, who will be discussing the different institutions you can choose from, including the Russell Group, Red Bricks and specialist institutions. And finally, we'll hear from Pat Chapman from the Northern School of Art, who'll be talking to you about the different virtual events available to help you choose a university and the advice that's out there too. Each of them will also be introducing their institution to give you an idea of why you might like to study with them. We'll be finishing up today with a question and answer session. So if you're viewing on Zoom and you'd like to submit a question, please click on the Q&A option at the bottom of your screen. You can also post questions in the live chat on YouTube, but please be aware that this chat is monitored and any inappropriate content will be reported to your school or college. So let's get started. We're now going to pass over to Alex from the University of Winchester to discuss choosing a course.
My name's Alex, I'm from the University of Winchester. I've got some lovely pictures of our campus behind us so you can see what Winchester is like. I'm going to be talking you through how to choose your course, and in order to do that I have prepared some slides for you, so I am just going to launch them.
On your application, now is the time to start your decision-making process. Over the next 15 minutes, I'll be advising how you can start deciding on a course or subject area. I'll be exploring the course choices available, then I'll move on to how you can compare different options. And finally, I'll give you tips on where you can go for more help. So to start with, what are the first steps you need to take in choosing which course to study? The first thing to consider is whether you have decided on which career you would like in the future. Several jobs require you to have a specific university qualification, for example, medicine, nursing, teaching, veterinary, physiotherapy, social work, and so on. So if you have a career in mind, do explore whether there is a required university level qualification. If you don't already have a career in mind, you could do a careers personality and interests test online to get ideas of what jobs would suit you. And if you have an idea of careers, it's worthwhile looking at the professional body for that career and also search on routes into the profession. This will give you an excellent insight into what it is like working in that industry and whether there is one route or a variety of routes into that career. If you do not have a career in mind, or the career that you're interested in doesn't have an associated university course, then you have a full range of choice of the 50,000 undergraduate courses that are available in the UK. You could take a subject that you're already studying or choose a completely new one. Many courses will not require you to have studied the subject before, but do check carefully before applying. You'll be learning from an academic staff who are experts in their field, and you may even be able to contribute to the research they are doing. And whichever course you choose, you'll be gaining useful skills for your future career. Whether you choose a career-related qualification or not, you are likely to earn more money and be less likely to be unemployed throughout your working life. I'm now going to move on to look at how you can explore the course options that are available to you. And in order to do that, I'm going to start off by looking at UCAS. UCAS stands for Universities and Colleges Admission Service, and you can find its website at www.ucas.com. UCAS provides an excellent search facility which enables you to look at the courses and universities. It's where you submit your application for all 5 of your choices and where you go to track your application and view the decisions made by universities. In addition, it provides students with videos and information about the initial stage where you're exploring what's available through the application process and on to what happens after your application has been submitted. And they have recently launched the UCAS Hub, which is a great thing to go and sign up to now, and that will help you throughout your searching process before you apply. Here is the UCAS landing page. From here, you want to click on undergraduate. And from there, if you click on choosing what and where to study, it will take you through to where you can click on subject guides. So UCAS has grouped courses together into subject areas, including things like game design, English, education, anthropology, so you can browse through the different categories and see which areas interest you. And when you click on a subject, there is a comprehensive amount of information, which includes the courses that are available within that subject area. English will have very broad degrees, such as English literature or English language, but also very focused degrees, such as forensic linguistics or creative and professional writing. It provides information about typical entry requirements and also selection methods used by universities when deciding whether to offer you a place. There are also tips on what to include in your personal statement. And moving on to opportunities after you have completed the course, including key areas of employment, actual graduate career destinations, and professional bodies associated with careers that the degree subject can lead to. Once you know which course you're interested in, you can explore the options available from the search facility on the main page of the UCAS website. Here, for example, I have typed in sports science, and then I've clicked on undergraduate, so that the search result comes back with degrees that you would be interested in looking at. So 787 courses have come back, 158 providers. At the moment, you can only see what is available for September, but you'll soon have the option to filter on courses starting in 2021. And this is what it looks like when the results come back. You can see all the different ones available in a grid view, or you can change that to a list view, and then click on that to get more information. You're also able to narrow down your options, and I'm going to look at two here, which are related to course. So the first one here is the entrance requirement calculator. You enter the qualifications that you are taking, and it will give you a tariff point score. You can then limit the course results to those which match your predicted grades. You can also filter the results by subject, which is useful if you have a specific course of interest within the wider course area. I'm now going to move on to look at how you can compare the options available. When you're looking at the individual course page on that UCAS search results for a university, this provides detailed information which will enable you to start narrowing down and comparing your options. If you like the look of a course, then click on the white heart on the top right-hand side of the screen, and this will save the course onto a shortlist. This will come back with detailed information, including course summary, how to apply, entry requirements, fees and funding, and provider information, and also, as you can see, open day dates. And also where it's located, and address, and link through to the course content details. As well as looking on UCAS, it's also important to look on the university website for course information. It will go into an even greater level of detail. You'll be able to see what modules are offered, teaching methods, assessment types, opportunities to study abroad or take on work experience, whether or not the course carries professional accreditation, when the open days are happening, and so on. So, as I said before, it's important to look at what entry requirements that you think you are going to be able to achieve in terms of your predicted and achieved results. And here we have examples of 4 different universities just to demonstrate how different entry requirements can look. As you can see, University A is offering on a fairly wide tariff band of 104 to 120 points. So that ranges in terms of A-levels from BCC up to BBB. And they're all also asking for a minimum 4 grade in English language GCSE. But it's not asking for a geography at A-level. University B, however, again, they have a band of entrance requirements, but they are looking at grades rather than points, and they're asking for geography A-level at a minimum of grade B. University C has also asked for GCSE maths as well as English, And University D is offering a lower grade for an extended project qualification. So when you are looking across the universities, look at those different entry requirements and what they're offering and what they would take into account when they are deciding whether or not to offer you a place. So for example, when you've got the University B and D there, they've got actual grades. The universities that offer tariff points will also often accept standalone AS levels and also the extended project qualification within that point score. Another thing to consider is the modules that are available. Now here we have three universities as an example for studying geography. Unlike A-levels and BTEC, universities don't follow a national syllabus, so they are able to put whatever modules on offer that they want to for their degree. So for example, here you can see University A and B. You're looking at second year modules here, and there are only 2 compulsory modules for both of those universities. And then, as you can see, there's a list of optional modules to choose from. University C has got more compulsory modules, but then underneath they do have a range of optional modules that you can take alongside. So when you're looking at the options that are available at universities, do make sure this is going to include what you are particularly interested in studying. And don't assume that because one university is offering one range of modules that it will be the same at a different university. Again, universities can also vary in how they are going to assess you. So here, for example, we've got University A, and you can see year 1, they are looking at 100% of assessment through coursework. And when you compare that with University B, they're looking in the first year at a mixture of written exams and practical experiments. Now, a lot of degrees will be what we describe as single honours, so that means that you're studying one subject. But there's also a range of combined honour degrees available, and in this case, you're usually studying 50% of your time in one subject and 50% in the other. And when you finish your degree, you can have a degree, for example, in BA Honours, English and Drama, and that shows that you studied 2 subjects. Now, there are pros and cons for doing a combined honours degree. Some of the positives would be that you get a greater variety on the course and you're likely to come out with a broader range of understanding with additional skills and experience which may well make you more employable. But on the other hand, you may find that a combined honours degree doesn't carry the accreditation that a single honours would. It's also not to be considered an easy option because often the 2 subjects are in different departments or different faculties, so the assessment deadlines may clash, which means that you're going to have to balance your workload very carefully and prioritise to make sure that you don't miss any of those deadlines. You may also find, because you're only doing 50% of the subject, that you don't get to explore in the sort of depth that you would be able to if you chose to do a single honours. Okay, so I'm now going to look at where you should go for more help. There are several resources that you can choose from. Obviously, we've already looked today at the UCAS website and the individual university website. Great places to find out more information on all different aspects to do with your course. There's also prospectuses. They tend to have a little bit less information than the websites, but they're also a very good place to have a look if you go into your careers library and have a flick through some prospectuses to see what catches your eye. In terms of social media, universities will have accounts across all different types of social media, including Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, but as well as a university level social media account, you may also find that the courses you're interested in also have their own social media accounts, and this is a great way of seeing what the current students on the course are doing. So, for example, if you're interested in archaeology, if you look at those sites over the summer, you're likely to see students working on digs, so you can get an idea of what it's going to be like to be on that course the following year. There are also a wide range of comparison websites out there. Probably the biggest is called Discover Uni. This is a rebrand from Unistats, and that's somewhere where you can go to directly compare different universities, levels of satisfaction with the course, graduate outcomes, and so on. And we've also got things like what uni, which university, the complete university guide, The student room is a great place to go and talk to current students. And then there are a range of both university level and subject level league tables where you can go and compare your courses. And finally, a nod to open days. I know at the moment it's probably not the best time to be suggesting you go to open days because they're all cancelled, but all universities I'm sure will be running virtual events over the next few months. So do check those out on the individual university websites. Okay, well, thank you very much for listening. I will be back at the end of the webinar, ready to answer your questions. And in the meantime, I'll hand you back to Megan. Thank you.
I'm going to pass over to Kate from the University of Huddersfield, and Kate is going to talk you through locations. So that's looking at different places across the UK and why going away from home or staying closer to home might be the right choice for you. So if you'd like to go ahead, Kate, thank you.
Yes, hello everyone. Hopefully we will be able to proceed without any further technical difficulties. My name's Kate from the University of Huddersfield. I'm not actually at the university. This is a virtual background. I'm not breaking any rules by being at this webinar. I'm going to talk to you today about the location of the university that you might want to pick. Now, picking the right course for you is going to be the most important thing. Please don't pick a university based solely on location, but it's very likely that a lot of you will be in a position where lots and lots of different courses will sound really appealing to you. You'll have lots of choices out there. So location is one of those next really big factors to consider. And there's lots of different areas that I'm hoping to go through. So location, location, location. I'm coming from the University of Huddersfield, so I will be able to tell you a little more about the University of Huddersfield than other universities in these different sections, but hopefully I will be able to tell you help you make the decisions about your university. The first big distinction that tends to come up when discussing universities that you probably may have heard mentioned is campus or city universities. A campus university means one that is spread around a campus university is one that is at a single site where all the buildings are all in one place. Sometimes it's a little further from the town or city where you're studying. A city university is more integrated into the city where it's based. You might walk through normal streets, past cafes and shops to get from one building to another. Quite often, students will have quite a strong instinctive feeling about which of these they prefer. Campus universities can be really pretty, visually appealing. They can feel like a bit of a safe environment. People often describe it as a student bubble, where everyone that you kind of interact with and meet are part of your social circle, and it feels that you'll be able to really focus on your studies on a campus. Alternatively, some people find this student bubble environment a little bit limiting, claustrophobic. They feel that they're missing out on the real world. They might prefer the more integrated and vibrant university, where you're kind of walking around the place that you're studying as part of your everyday life and integrating within that society. Campus universities can also be quite far from the town or city where they are based, which means that you might not spend a whole lot of your time in that place. So there's different advantages and disadvantages. So talking about the University of Huddersfield again, the location is right across the road from the town centre. It's easy to grab lunch or shopping during your day when you're not studying. And it's a little bit easier to get between one place and the other at the same time. We don't have accommodation blocks on our campus either. This means that you do naturally experience some of that real life feel when you're going between your accommodation and campus. Now, campus versus city makes it sound like a competition, but there isn't necessarily a better option here, or one that is definitely going to be better than the other for you. It's just one of the things you need to consider, and it really is down to personal preference. You'll also want to consider the type of place you feel most comfortable living or studying in. So universities can be based in or near large cities, smaller cities, towns, or in more rural locations. Again, there's no intrinsically better option here, but each has their own benefits and drawbacks. Cities can have lots of cultural activities and events going on, plentiful part-time job opportunities, but might feel a little overwhelming and confusing if you aren't used to that environment. They can be more expensive as well. I'll come on to talk more about costs in a minute. More rural universities can be relaxing and peaceful places to study, giving you lots of opportunities to spend time doing outdoor activities if that's what you enjoy. They will, of course, still offer activities, and there will be bars and cafes just because there is a university there. However, there'll be slightly fewer opportunities in general. Town cities can be a little bit of a halfway house. This is again the category Huddersfield tends to fall into. We have a vibrant, largely student theatres right across the road from the university and a smaller music venues. We also have a renowned contemporary literature festival and a music festival that take place in the town and heavily involved with all the students as well. However, students from Huddersfield probably need to hop on the train from Leeds or Manchester in order to maybe see the Irish concert or go to one of the big events. University country, so it Huddersfield away from the north of the Peak District. It can be a little bit of a compromise. Certain towns and cities will also be cheaper than others to live in, which can be a big decision-making factor. As a general rule, bigger cities and universities in the southeast of the country can be more expensive for accommodation, transport and social activities. If you venture, this is obviously a generalisation, and there will be lots of examples of pricey cities in the north, cheaper towns in the south, and everything in between. London prices are pretty much always the most expensive of all, but this is balanced against the fact you can home if you decide to study in London and live away from home, so this can help cover this additional cost. My main advice on cost is to try not to make assumptions expensive specific content. Remember, there'll usually be a range of accommodations to choose from at all universities, which, if you are living away, means you'll have some degree of choice over how much you want to spend on rent, no matter whereabouts in the country you are. So don't necessarily let a reputation of a place change your mind about your dream course. As a town in the north, Huddersfield has one of the lowest living costs in the UK for students. En-suite accommodation can start from just £80 a week with bills included, which could make your student loan go a lot further. Whichever environment and price point you prefer, you'll need to think about how far away from home you'd like to be. So I'd recommend researching things like public transport links and parking on campus while making your decisions. These are things that are easy to research from home. How would you get there from your house, and what is the parking situation like? Some students would prefer to be closer or at least a comfortable distance from home so that they can visit family and friends regularly, whereas others may want to use the university experience to move somewhere completely different, which might include experiencing a whole different part of the country. If you don't drive, look at how close the nearest train station to campus is and how long it would take you to get home, and would cost. If a train ticket home costs £200, which isn't impossible for some journeys in the UK, you'll need to seriously consider if you're okay with that and how often you might want to go home, whether you're okay with rationing those journeys. It might be, that's absolutely fine for you, no problem, but it's something to be aware of and not be surprised by when you're only able to go home at Christmas and Easter from your university that's a little further away. You may also want to look into how easy it would be to visit friends planning to attend other universities as well. Coming back to Huddersfield, our university campus is about 15 minutes walk away from the train station, which is on a main line, which means there are quick services to major cities like Manchester, Liverpool, Leeds and York every half an hour during the week. It's a factor a lot of our students consider because it is really convenient. It's easy to visit friends and family, attend social events without any hassle, and it's particularly appealing for students thinking about living at home. So finally, coming on to thinking about living at home and living away. Some of you might be in your really early stages of research about university and not really sure whether you prefer to live at home or live away, which could be the biggest decision you need to make and the one you need to make first before you can think about some of these other factors that we've been talking about today. Living at home is an increasingly common option for university students, and whilst things like the cost of accommodation might be less crucial, considering factors around location is still important. You'll be spending lots of your work and your social time at university, so you do need to think about the type of environment you want, whether or not you'll be spending all of your time there. to live at home will mean you have a smaller pool of universities to choose from, because you will need to be able to travel to them regularly. However, you're still likely to have those choices of campus, city, rural and different located universities to pick from. There's many reasons why living at home and commuting to university might be the right choice for you. Make sure that you are fully informed about how you're going to get there before you make that decision finally. Even if your course is light touch, some courses you're only required to be in lectures maybe 6 to 8 hours per week. You can't necessarily assume that means that you won't need to be in university most days of the week. A 6 to 8 hour contact time course could still involve 4 to 5 days at university. So you need to be realistic about how you're going to make your way there and back, how long it will take, and how much it will cost. This is particularly important if your course includes lots of compulsory placement, health-related courses, teaching, because you'll need to be able to get to placement locations as well. Of course, living away from home at university isn't without its difficulties and its own time constraints. You'll spend more of your time cooking, cleaning, shopping, and learning to live with others. This may take up time equivalent to a commute or perhaps even more, and provide a lot of different stresses and a lot of different considerations. So there's not really an easier way to do it. Living at home isn't the easy option and living at university isn't the easy option. There's just different things to consider. You have to think about what is right for you. If you haven't decided, but your only or your main reason to consider living at home is to save money, that is the reason that comes into play for a lot of people living at home, and in a lot of cases it is a lot cheaper. Just make sure you know how much travelling will cost you and you know how much you'd really save. You do get a slightly reduced student loan if you live at home as well, so it is something to consider. I recently spoke to a student considering living at home and commuting by train from Hyde to Huddersfield. So Hyde is a town in Greater Manchester. It's about 30 miles away from Huddersfield, so not very far. But when we looked into it together, the weekly train ticket would have been £85 per week from Hyde to Huddersfield. And a single ensuite room in our preferred accommodation is the same price. So bearing in mind she may have to do food shopping but would get a little less student loan, it wouldn't have been significantly cheaper for her to travel every week than to live away. She didn't really consider the fact that because the train had a change, it was a much more expensive premium ticket than one simply from Manchester. So just being close doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be cheap to travel somewhere. Still might have been the right decision for her, definitely, but she was quite surprised by the cost. Equally, if you're thinking of driving, there's a lot of costs involved in driving too, so tax, insurance, MOT, upkeep, petrol, parking, buying a car in the first place perhaps. So don't necessarily think of living at home as a really cheap option. The costs can mount if you haven't thought about them. Not the most glamorous thing to think about, but you do have plenty of time now to do that research and think about how much commuting is going to cost you. Anyway, the main thing to consider when choosing to live at home at university is that it is going to be the right decision for you. You're not going to miss out socially by living away from home. Around a third of students at Huddersfield actually live at home. They're very active members of social groups. We have lots of student ambassadors who are based at home as well, and they definitely have the time of their life at university still. They're active members of societies, so it's not going to disadvantage you in that way. Just make sure that you're weighing up all the options and you know what your journey is going to look like. As I've hopefully demonstrated, there's a lot to think about in terms of location, cost, locality, campus versus city, and whether you're actually going to move away or just travel to your university campus every day. Whilst it's not possible to visit universities at the moment, there's lots of ways to make the most of online tools in order to explore locations from your home. So virtual tours and videos and online open days have already been mentioned. You could also try using Google Maps to sort of place yourself in a town or city and get a feel for it, have a little look around virtually. You could compare accommodation costs at different universities, spend some time researching that, and you can plan your theoretical journeys, so look at how long it's going to take you, how many changes from your doorstep to the doorstep of the university if you're thinking of travelling there. Then you can use this research to make yourself a shortlist, ready to make trips to visit universities, either at open days or perhaps smaller things like campus tours that might go on in the next several months towards the end of this year. Thank you very much for listening, and I'm looking forward to answering your questions at the end. I hope that you heard most of that this time. I'm going to pass back to Megan.
What we're going to do now is we're going to introduce Gavin. Gavin is from the University of Glasgow, and he's going to be talking to you about different institutions. So you may have heard these names bandied around, such as the Russell Group, Red Brick, modern institutions and specialist institutions. Gavin's going to be breaking these down for you, so you can decide which one of them might be right for you.
Thanks for that, Megan, and hi everyone, and thanks for watching today. As introduced, my name's Gavin. I'm from the University of Glasgow, the UK student recruitment team there. And today what I'm going to do is just chat through what it's the differences between studying things like ancient universities, red brick universities, post-92, and specialist as well as the Russell groups. Obviously, you can tell from my accent, I'm speaking to you from Glasgow. I'm a Glaswegian. So I will also talk about University of Glasgow as well and how they kind of fit into these different sections. So the few wee things I'm going to show you, here we are, oops. There we go. So these are the different kind of institutions that you can kind of, you'll hear these terms bandied about, whether you're looking at prospectuses, maybe you're going to like open day fairs, even from your school, careers teacher and stuff like that. So I'll take these on one by one. Ancient universities, these, I mean, it says it in the title, these are very old universities. They've mostly been founded since before 1600, so properly old. There are 7 that count as ancient universities, and these, Glasgow is one of them, so we're the 4th oldest in the English-speaking world. You've also got things like Oxford and Cambridge in there, 4 others from Scotland, as well as Dublin University as well. Now, these universities, because they've been about for so long, they tend to know what they're doing at teaching. So, and also in the cities that they are kind of placed in, the cities are spread out around these universities because they've been there for so long. They've really embedded themselves in the footprint of whichever area they are in. One of the things to kind of note on when you're going to an ancient university, so one of the things you can look at is if you're studying for a Bachelor of Arts somewhere, you'll get a BA. At an ancient university, you're more likely to get an MA. Now, an MA might say to you that it's a Master of Arts, a postgraduate Masters. However, at an ancient university, an MA is actually just equivalent to a Bachelor of Arts. So that's something to think about. It doesn't take any extra time or anything like that. It's just a different way of stylising our degrees. Next up, we've got the red bricks. Now, the red brick universities are spread across England and UK. So these ones are kind of essentially, they're named after, I mean, the red brick. It's like a kind of a style of kind of Gothic architecture that was popular back in Victorian times. When you go to universities like Manchester, Liverpool, Leeds, these universities have beautiful red brick buildings, and they're also kind of spread across the cities. So when you're going for a red brick university, these ones tend to be more in the kind of big industrial cities across the UK. Because of that, it also means that they're actually really quite hustling and bustling cities. So if you're wanting to go to a city that's a university and a city that's got lots going on, it's got a really good history and the kind of the upbringing of our nation, the red brick universities are fantastic for that. So apart from the red bricks of these actual buildings, that is what they are. That's what they're named after, their literal look. But there's a really big group of them as well. So you can have a look through the different universities. If they claim to be a red brick building, red brick university, it's essentially they're just part of that group there. Now, you've got the post-92 or new or modern universities as well. These are essentially universities that, again, it says it in the title, that were created after 1992. In 1992, there was a Further and Higher Education Act, which essentially turns a lot of places that were polytechnics. So you might hear your parents or grandparents say things like, oh, that's a polytechnic. But they, in 1992, turned into universities. What this did was added a whole host of universities to the roster of the UK universities, giving you guys so much more choice when it comes to making your decision of where you want to go. Now, because these were, a lot of them were polytechnics, this means like a lot of them were fantastic for things like STEM subjects, as well as all the kind of vocational subjects that you really want to get in a job with. So maybe if you want to do things like journalism, sports science, things like that, they're absolutely phenomenal in those areas. So the other ones good to look at there. and again, being a bit more modern, the buildings won't be as ancient as the University of Glasgow's building or some of the other ancient buildings, but it might be more modern as well. You've also got specialist universities. Now, specialist universities can cover a whole different range of kind of areas, from things like performing arts to the visual arts. These are institutions that really specialise in one area. So places like Glasgow School of Art, which is up here in Glasgow, they focus more on the visual arts. You've also got things that are more clinical. So you've got some medical specialist universities, as well as the Royal Veterinary College, which is obviously for vets. And that's what that kind of specialism will do. So it's not as if you're going to go there and study a whole range of subjects. They're all very more niche, and there's a kind of gathered in that area. So that's what the specialist universities will be, and the Russell Groups. Now, the Russell Groups were founded back in 1994, and it's a group of 24 leading universities across the UK. These universities are fantastic for research, so much so that they get about 75% of the UK's university research funding coming in, which actually works out to be a total of just over like £4 billion a year. Now, that's absolutely insane how much money is going into these universities, and obviously right now the country is relying on these fantastic universities to use the research money and their kind of scientific skills to come up with solutions to great world problems, which couldn't be any more topical than now. So these universities, if you go to them, or if you see a universities saying that they're a Russell Group, you can kind of be rest assured that they have fantastic facilities for research. They really come up with cutting edge stuff. And this means that when you're maybe being when you're going to these universities, your lecturers, your tutors, your professors might be the people who are coming up with solutions to great world problems. And that kind of level of teaching will trickle down into, that level of research will trickle down into your classroom. So you'll be learning from some of the best people in the country for this. So that's what the Russell Groups are. So there's 24 of them. They're all very fantastic to go to. Again, you'll find them in quite a lot of the larger cities, the Russell Groups, and they're also, the actual Russell Group itself is chaired by the University of Glasgow, Vice-Chancellor and Principal as well. So we've got a really good connection to that Russell Group. We were also one of the founding members of the Russell Group as well. Now, that is the kind of, that's the kind of what the different institutions can be like. The University of Glasgow is actually two of them. So we are an ancient university. We've been about since 1451, which, like, back then wolves were still roaming about Scotland, and Machu Picchu hadn't been built yet. And that's the kind of, that's when we say ancient universities, we properly do mean ancient university. They've been going for ages. And that is something that is kind of embedded in our history. We're also one of the Russell Groups as well. So when you're looking at Russell Group institutions, a lot of kind of newspaper articles and what uni articles and whatever ones you're looking at, they'll always kind of tend to say that Russell Group graduates have fantastic levels of employment. And that is absolutely true at Glasgow. We have about 95.9% of our students are in employment or in further education 6 months after graduating their undergraduate. Now that kind of means that they're either in their job or they're following a subject they absolutely love into further research and getting involved with that kind of element of things, which is a fantastic thing to do to bolster your way through your academic career. Now, being a Scottish university as well, there's a slightly different kind of element of it. You'll see we've got 4-year degree programmes. In Scotland, you'll actually get to study 3 subjects in first year. And I'll go on to kind of show you what that would actually look like. So at the University of Glasgow, for instance, we're an ancient university, we're a Russell Group, we're a Scottish university. This means you get to study all these 3 subjects in year 1. So imagine being able to do politics, economics and philosophy all in year 1, and then changing one of them over in year 2. The reason this is so good is you could apply to politics on its own, and if you fell out of love with it entirely, you could keep your economics up and get a degree in economics. The slide I'm showing you right now is an example of a joint honour degree, which essentially means you're doing 2 subjects all the way through to your honours level at year 4. Should this person have wanted to maybe just focus on the politics, They could have just picked their politics in year 3 and 4 and it'd be a single honours degree. So in Scotland, you might hear single honours and joint honours being used, and that's how that kind of works. What this does is give you fantastic flexibility. It gives you a chance to study more subjects than you maybe normally would have. You don't just need to study the one subject that you might fancy leaving school. You can study even 3 subjects you're doing at A-levels or advanced higher. And this is really quite fantastic for being able to kind of try out new things, especially at a university like Glasgow that has over 600 degrees, and that's the kind of including all the joint honours. So you can do things like computing science with Greek, you can do medicine, dentistry, vet, loads and loads of things there. Another thing about the University of Glasgow, I said that the ancient universities, they've been doing it so long, they've got quite good at it, and that's absolutely true with Glasgow as well. We're fantastic rankings. You'll see there, they've got some vet medicine, we're number 1 in the UK, dentistry, nursing, fantastic for these ones. And so much so that the University of Glasgow right now, we love our science, but we're a Russell Group institution. We're actually putting our kind of power as a research hub into fighting this current global crisis. University of Glasgow is kind of putting together Scotland's largest testing centre in Glasgow. So for coronavirus, Glasgow is really at the helm of that and hoping and being part of the solution. And that's one of the things that Glasgow really prides itself on, having world changers. The fact that you're watching this on a screen today means that you've probably given a nod and a wee thanks to John Logie Baird, the guy who invented television. So screens today are kind of great-grandchildren of his initial invention. And he was a part of the University of Glasgow team, as well as a host of other greats. We actually have a fence and a big gateway at the University of Glasgow, and it has amazing names on it like Isabella Elder, James Watt. But we've also got these kind of empty spaces, and that's because we know that our students that come to the University of Glasgow are going to be future world changers as well, and come up with amazing solutions to hopefully come up with good ideas to kind of make the world a better place. So we like that kind of future world changing element. And we are quite a large university, from about 29,000 students from all across the world. Because we are an ancient university, we've been about for so long, we have a fantastic international stance, and that's why you'll see a lot of universities, especially in the Russell groups and the ancient universities, pulling people in from across the world. And we are a really strong place within the Russell group institutions as well. Other things about Glasgow in general, we're a very friendly city, and that's one of the things I'd definitely say, that when you are looking at going to a university, don't get too bogged down in these kind of titles of, even though I've just told you about them all, don't just say, I want to go to an ancient, I want to go to a red brick, I want to go to a specialist. Go to the university that really suits your interest the most. A university that teaches what you want to study. They teach it in a way you want to study it. And also they teach it in an area, a city, and a place that suits you. We are in a fantastic situation in Glasgow that we're a phenomenally friendly city. We've been ranked the friendliest city in the world before. And it goes to show, I went down the shops for my messages today, and just random strangers were joking with me about keeping 2 metres apart. So it's a fantastic feeling, Glasgow. And that's what I really hope you get a chance to do. You go to a university, get a feel for what the university is like, but then also what the city is like, what the people are like. And that's a huge, huge part of it as well, because you'll be studying for 3 or 4 years. So yes, ancient universities, Russell Group, Red Bricks, post-92, they've all got their benefits as universities, but that isn't the be-all and end-all. You've also got to look at the other things that the other guys are going to be explaining to you today, where it is and what subject to choose and stuff as well. So these are a huge, huge part of what you want to be doing and making your decision for the university. But hopefully that's been quite useful for you guys to understand a bit more what it's like to study at an ancient university, a Russell Group, a Red Brick. We've got loads and loads of options in the United Kingdom, so you're really spoiled for choice. So whatever you do, make sure you have a look at all of them. Don't just stick to one category. Look around all of them, have a wee try at all of them. Do as much virtual snooping as you can. Obviously, real open days aren't a thing anymore, but if you can actually get a chance to go to the university virtual open days on their websites, definitely get a chance to do that. And that is me just about finished. I'm really looking forward to answering some of your questions later on as well. I can see already we've got loads coming in, so I'm really looking forward to doing that. I'm just going to pass back to Megan, and then this is going to be me passing on to the other presenters. So thanks very much for watching.
Thank you very much, Gavin. That was great. I'm sure loads of you enjoyed that, and there was lots of useful information in there. As Gavin mentioned at the end of his section, you can still visit universities through virtual open days, and a lot of you have been asking questions about different types of virtual open days. So Pat from the Northern School of Arts, this is Patrick Chapman, is going to be talking to you about all different types of virtual events and the places you can go for advice, as well as giving you a bit more information about the Northern School of Art as well.
Hi everybody, I'm Pat Chapman and I'm the Vice Principal at the Northern School of Art, and I'm going to do my talk to you the other way around to some of my colleagues this morning. So I'm going to tell you about the Northern School of Art to start off with, and why a specialist institution is different. I'm not going to say it's better, but it's different to other forms of university. So the Northern School of Art is one of only a very small number of specialist art and design institutions nationally. We're not a small institution. We have about the same number of undergraduates as a large university's arts faculty, but our campus is compact. You won't get lost. There are only 5 buildings with studios and workshops, theatre, seminar rooms, library, IT suites, and all sorts of things like that. But we are a special place. We're a creative, collaborative and welcoming community where we get to know you as an individual, specifically supporting you to develop as a successful artist or designer. And it's a place where you get to work alongside other creatives in other disciplines. We've got an outstanding record of student employability. For the last 4 years of data, more than 96% of our graduates were in work or further study after leaving us. So, as it says on the tin, we only offer creative degrees and master's courses. These include our visual arts cluster, which is fine art, illustration, graphics, photography, our stage and screen cluster, looking at acting, film stage production, costume, production design for stage and screen, visual effects and model making, and then design cluster of courses as well, including textiles, fashion, and digital design for advertising, and creative influencing. All of our degrees are developed very much in partnership with industry, and industry help us to deliver them to you. Our students are encouraged to collaborate across all of the disciplines that we have, just as you will in the real world as a creative. So for example, all of our stage productions involve acting students, costume students, set designers, production design students, setting up lighting and sound. And similarly, a filmmaking student will work with this same group of students in producing their show reels and their actual finished films. We go for high quality teaching and learning experience, and our staff, again as a specialist institution, have their own external creative roles and creative experience. And we work with something like 70 different external creative professionals who aren't on our teaching staff every year, and they come in and work with students. We've been a TEF Gold institution since the start back in 2017. And also, you don't need to just believe me about, are we good? Is this an interesting place to be? One of the things you always should look at is the results of the National Student Survey, the NSS. And for us, we've got excellent student satisfaction overall, which is 91.8% on the last survey, which certainly is the best in the north of England. So, how do we achieve all of that as a specialist? What makes a specialist institution special? Well, we do it through investment in facilities. Because we're only investing in facilities for creative degree programs, we put a lot of resource behind that, and we don't have to dilute the way we do that. So we invest in cameras, studio spaces for individual students, industry standard film and photography studios, which are newly built, a new theatre space, print rooms with a range of different printing techniques available, software, pattern cutting rooms, so much more. We also do it through the on-site support that we offer you. This isn't just about the tutors that you meet on your programs, but it's about providing you with dedicated pastoral support, mental health support, help with issues like autism or dyslexia that you might be living with, and academic support as well, because in the case of our institution, not all creatives are the best academic writers, so we have dedicated support for doing things like that too. As well as what other institutions offer, which is support for housing and finance, and any issues around hardship, which in these times might be particularly important to you. On your course, you can expect higher degrees of contact time, working in small groups. With us, in the first year, that starts at 16 hours of contact time. But that isn't the end of our contact, if you like, because all of our studios have technical staff working in them 5 days a week, Monday to Friday, all day, and they're there to support you in using all of the specialist equipment and developing your practice. How else do we do it? Well, I've talked about working with and through the creative sector. We do this on live projects on all of our courses. We do it through mentoring. We do it through the provision of work experience with our industry partners, and also giving you the chance to get external showcase for your work. So with us, you might work on a set that appears on a BBC TV programme as part of your assessed work. You might make a costume for Killing Eve. You might design the cover of a national magazine, or you might exhibit and sell a textiles collection in Paris, or act in a Ken Bloach movie. And indeed, you could curate your own exhibition. We work with a vast range of external partners. Some of these are organisations like BBC, ITV, Channel 4, big museums, the National Opera House in Covent Garden, but also individuals. So in recent years, well, over the last couple of years, you know, Amber Butchart, the fashion historian, has been on site several times giving us personal feedback to students. You might work with someone like Jimmy Terrell, who's a graphic designer and videographer working with Beck and others. And the backdrop behind me is a project that we were commissioned to do by Radio 1, working with Jimmy to actually produce these large-scale murals. You might get to meet Patrick Grant from the Sewing Bee, who could critique your latest design, or working with someone like Chris Riddell, who's a great friend of ours. You might get an illustration in The Guardian or The Observer, and, like one of our graduates, get a weekly column even before you leave us. So that's not all. Again, as a specialist institution, we don't actually offer you a career service. What we do is offer you a highly specialised and specialist employability and creative enterprise service, offering you personal support, intensive support across things like business planning, across funding and finance, and doing group seminar work with you around this and networking events, allowing yourself to establish yourself as a real person on the creative scene. We treat our undergraduates as creative professionals from the moment they join us. And it's part of preparing you, and that's how we get the great employability that we do. So we also have a range of facilities for our alumni, which are perhaps unusual in that we've got a dedicated creative workspace for 100 people as graduates and early career professionals in a beautiful converted Victorian building. And all of the employability services are available to all of our students and all of our graduates forever. So, as an art school, our staff and students and buildings are also at the heart of a wider arts scene, particularly in the northeast of England, which is incredibly vibrant for that. There are festivals in town, there are pop-up nights, there's scratch nights, pop-up galleries, selling opportunities, and a range of different socials and creative socials. For example, the school itself created the Northern Festival of Illustration and the Northern Illustration Prize, which are both international events attracting creatives from across the world to show, exhibit, and do masterclasses. Right, we're specialists, but we're not in a big city university. We're only 30 minutes away from places like Newcastle on the train with its cultural buzz and nightlife. But because we are a community, an institution that's a community, we have a very active student life on campus and in the town. Most of this is led and developed by our Students' Union. You should always ask about student union activity when you're trying to choose an institution. Individual groups of students from programs also lead a lot of our social activities. For example, our costume students hold a number of formal balls each year. We have regular comedy nights, film nights, game nights, role-playing events, and yeah, you go out to the pub as well. So, how do you make your choice, especially in these times? It's a difficult one, but the first thing I want to say is the choice of where to study is yours. Don't let yourself be pressured into a decision, and above all, make the choice that offers you what you want to study in a place that you feel right. At the Northern, we know we are not going to be right for everyone, and that's absolutely fine. We wouldn't want you to come to us if you're not going to thrive. That wouldn't be good for you, it wouldn't be good for us. So, to start with, how do you go about this? Well, easy. Go to UCAS Course Search or UK University Search, their websites, to look up different types of courses that you're interested in. Both of these websites provide you with great advice on how to use them and how to look through them. Also, make sure you talk to your tutors and teachers. The thing to do is come up with a short list of places that offer the course that you're looking for. But as colleagues said before, don't have a closed mind. Don't just look at campus or city. See what different types of uni offer you in your subject. So, once you've got a short list, you need to try and decide what's important to you, other than the course and your teaching and learning experience. You need to get yourself some decision-making criteria. In normal times, the best way to inform your choice and test out these criteria would be to go to an open day, go to an applicant day, and get a feel for the place. It would be talking to the academics and especially talking to students. But we can't do this at the moment. So how can you get some answers? Well, first things first, go to websites, go to the university websites. Most of those these days will be offering either virtual learning experiences, which is virtual open day experiences, which are static, or indeed live virtual open days, which you can book onto. Look for those on the websites and book onto them, have a look. Use online chat facilities as well. Individual universities will have their own online chat facilities, often associated with the virtual open days. And there are platforms like Unibuddy where you will be able to talk to students at the universities you're interested in, on the courses that you're interested in, hopefully, to do that. But also, use social media. Once you've chosen some institutions that you're interested in, follow them, check out what they're like, find out what stories they're telling you. It's worth saying a little bit more, I think, about virtual open days in the current situation. They really give you a chance to see the facilities that students will be using, whether or not that's accommodation or indeed the facilities that you get to use on your program. It might be labs, it might be studios, it might be the library, it might be the IT suites, all of these different types of things. Also, the virtual open days can give you a feel for what student support is like at the institutions, and hopefully it should give you a chance to hear from students and academics talking about individual courses. The great thing about virtual open days is you can attend loads of them. You are not constrained by having to beg a lift to a different part of the country or jump on a train and spend money on train tickets. You can book on loads and do that. You've got a great opportunity at the moment to see a wide range of institutions. One thing I would say, if you're doing virtual open days, take notes. Otherwise, you are going to forget what people said at different unis and you will not be able to make the choice very effectively. The other thing is, after things like virtual open days, once you've had a chance to reflect, you might think, oh, I wish I'd asked this. Well, ask that. All institutions will have email addresses for admissions or indeed for their academics. So go back, ask questions, use the online chat room for the institution or email them. It's really important to actually do that. Frankly, we're all sat here waiting for you to ask us questions. So, one thing to say, it's important that you do preparation before you use either online digital resources or any other form of open day or applicant day. You need to think about what questions you want to ask. So here are a few prompts for how you can actually do both digital research and real physical research once we get back to having real physical open days. Obviously, the course should be one of the first things, in fact, the first thing on your list of things to find out about, because your goal has to be finding out if the course is right for you, if it's something you really want to spend the next few years focused on. And that will offer you the right opportunities in life as well. So what do you look at? What does the course cover? Check out what the full structure of the course is, the modules that you're going to be studying. Have a look at the course specifications online. Check out the contact hours. Check out the different types of assessment methods that are used by different institutions. Check out the form of learning. Is it seminar based? Is it tutorial? Is it heavily dependent on independent learning? What size of the tutorial groups are you going to be in? That's important to you, and it will be different for your own preferences of learning. Does it have the facilities you expect? And what are the entry requirements? And finally on that, I'd say check out the career prospects. You've seen the employability stats for my institution and for Glasgow's. Everybody has to have that data up there on their websites. Check it out. And then don't forget, there's other things apart from the actual course. Are you guaranteed a place in halls in your first year? What's the accommodation like? Is it on campus, off campus? Check it out. Also, what are the prices around accommodation and what's included in the cost of accommodation? Ask yourself and ask the evidence you've got what academic support you might expect, also what bursaries or scholarships there might be and how you apply for them. All of this is normally available on websites. Finally, you might think about the social side. So how active is the student union? What types of societies are there? What's the nightlife like, if that's important to you? And what else is there to do? Are you going to be in a place that's well connected and can get you to places where you want to do things? Whether that's sport, culture, or anything else. When you talk to students and staff, you really need to test if we do what we say on the tin. And that's why combining the online research with the digital engagement that you can get into is really important. So don't forget, lockdown is not going to last forever. Physical events are going to come back. We don't know what they might look like yet, but they are going to come back, hopefully. And you can use this stage of your research to actually do really good, strong research to inform your choice, and even inform your choice of where you might want to go and attend a physical open day after all of this is over. So thanks for listening to me, and I'm going to hand back to Megan now.
We are now going to start doing some questions. So if you do still have any questions, please feel free to click on the Q&A button on Zoom or pop them in the live chat on YouTube. Our panel will also be working through the questions on Zoom. So if we don't get through to your question live on the chat, then they may just type out their answer for you below as well. Okay, so we are going to start with some questions that have been emailed over to us over the past week from students. So thank you very much to everyone who sent through a question. And I'm going to start with a question for Gavin today. Gavin's from the University of Glasgow. And the question is, what activities would you suggest doing now to better our UCAS applications?
Again, and this is an absolutely fantastic question that we constantly get asked when we're in schools and at fairs and stuff like that. To be honest, the answer is do the things that you absolutely love doing, things that make you you. Don't just start doing activities because you saw someone who's maybe a hockey captain and you thought, well, when they got into university, I need to go and be a hockey captain and play hockey. Do what the things that you find natural and that you're good at. That being said, if you're playing lots of sport already, or doing music or drama or volunteering, you're doing the right stuff. Anything that you're doing outside of school is going to help you. So anything that shows that you've got good leadership qualities, good communication skills, good creativity, whatever it is that you're hoping to go on and study, find similarities between that and whatever you're doing. It doesn't mean that you can, just because you play rugby, you can't attribute that to studying something like medicine. There's still like things like, as I said, leadership tied into that. So definitely activity wise, keep doing things you love doing. Don't overdo it as well. Don't just start ticking off all the boxes of, I want to do my Duke of Edinburgh, I want to do all these sports and all this volunteering. Make it manageable. You never want to detriment your academic grades for the sake of your kind of more kind of soft skill stuff like volunteering or playing sport on the side. So my advice there would be keeping it quite balanced between the two, but keep doing the things that make you smile and make you happy. Don't just do things because other people are doing it. When it comes to your personal statement, we want to see what makes you fantastic and what makes you vibrantly you, not just what makes you similar to everyone else. We want to see something a bit more unique. So keep doing the things that you love doing. Find something you love doing if you're not doing it already. Even if you're doing like making YouTube videos or doing that kind of stuff, that's the more modern kind of hobbies. Fire that in your application. That's the kind of stuff that universities love seeing. Bit of uniqueness as well. That's pretty much it.
Thank you very much, Gavin. Next up, we have a question for Pat from the Northern School of Art. This is a really important question, and choosing a subject to study at university is a really big decision, not only because you're going to be doing it for 3 years, but because you are eventually going to have to pay back your student finance as well. So this question is, how do I know I won't regret the subject I've chosen to study at university?
Thanks, Megan. It is a good question, and it's one that I've kind of got personal experience of, because my daughter chose to study her subject at a particular university some years ago, and unfortunately that one didn't work out for her, and she realised that relatively early on and changed institutions. She had a range of different reasons for doing that, but I would have given her different advice beforehand when she was choosing it, and that advice is this: you've got to decide what is right for you. Once you've done your research, then you get a better chance of studying the right course for you in the right place. So you need to define your own success criteria. So is getting a good job at the end of your studies the most important thing to you? If it is, then really research the employability of the graduates from that course. If, however, it's the student experience that matters to you, do research on that. You might have personal interests outside your studies and find out that you need to find out if you can still do those alongside the course that you're going to study. I think it's really important to talk to students about this. Do the online chats. If you can get to real physical events when they start up again, talk to the students, because that will give you a feel. If they're happy, you're going to stand a better chance of being happy and not regret the choice that you make. Also, ask questions about these areas of your interest at the interview and do it that way, and then you won't make the mistake that my daughter made.
Thank you very much, Pat. Next, we have a question for Alex from the University of Winchester. This one is, what are the advantages and disadvantages of going to university?
Okay, great question. I don't know if you call them disadvantages, but two really big things to consider before you decide to go. First of all, obviously, it is a big commitment in terms of money. Most universities leave university with debt from tuition fee loans and also maintenance loans, but don't let that put you off. Have a look on the Student Finance England website. Also, Martin Lewis's information on moneysavingexpert.com. He does a great session on student loan myth busting. And on the 13th of May, the UK University Search webinar on this slot will be covering student finance. So do tune into that webinar. It is also a big commitment in terms of time because it's likely to take 3 or more years to gain your degree. And depending on what career you're interested in, you might find it equally beneficial to go straight into a job rather than delay 3 years. But I think there are big advantages that hopefully outweigh those big considerations. Firstly, you'll be gaining an internationally recognised qualification. It's an opportunity to study a subject that you love in greater depth or gain you a qualification which enables you to pursue your dream career. On average, you're likely to earn more over your lifetime and be less likely to be unemployed than someone who doesn't have a university degree. And there's a whole range of opportunities that you can take part in at university, which you wouldn't be able to in life outside of university. And again, a quick plug to the UK University Search webinar on the 27th of May, which is looking at life at university. So you can really see some of the opportunities that you'll be able to take part in. What I would say is, if it is a big decision, you don't have to go at 18. Universities have mature students of all ages coming through. So if it takes you a couple more years to reflect upon what you want from life, that's absolutely fine. You don't have to go to university straight away. I hope that helps. I'll hand you back to Megan now.
Thank you very much, Alex. And yes, as Alex mentioned, we do have lots of really great webinars coming up in the next few weeks. Lots of people have been asking about personal statements. That one is going to be next week. So you'll have a whole session dedicated to your UCAS application, going through all different types of questions about how to structure it, what to include, what you can do now at home. So please make sure to tune in next week for that one. And also the week after is our student finance. The 20th of May will be apprenticeships. And the 27th of May will be life at university. So that's a bit more about what life is actually like as an undergraduate student. Okay, so let's keep going with the questions. Next up, we have Kate from the University of Huddersfield. Kate is going to be taking on the question, how much attention should you pay to graduate employability and student satisfaction when choosing a university?
Hello everyone. Yes, so apologies. So when you're looking at things like statistics like graduate employment, student satisfaction, all that information can feed into the research that you're doing for universities. They can be really useful in the decision-making process, particularly when picking between universities that appeal to you in different ways, and making those kind of judgments when you're really unsure which one to pick. Individual measures like student satisfaction and graduate employment can be more useful than overall league tables because you can, as I think one of my colleagues has mentioned, you can focus on what's important to you. You know, student satisfaction might be very important in your decision making, but it might be that a university that's higher up in the league tables does well in other measures but has a little lower in their student satisfaction. So you can really focus by looking at those individual measures on ones that are better. However, I would recommend you really need to use a lot of caution when looking at any statistical figures, particularly ones that universities put on the websites themselves. Sample sizes can sometimes be small, so 75% could mean literally 3 out of 4 people sometimes when you're looking at a very small course, and that is sometimes the figure that can be quoted. Not very representative overall. You need to think about whether they're consistent year on year, or if there's a blip, so if it seems particularly high or low, any of these figures you're looking at, if you can, see if it matches up with other years or if there's been a particularly good or bad year for the university. That will give you a better idea of how they perform overall rather than a one-off statistic. There'll also be different figures for the university overall, courses and departments. So which of those are you looking at? So are you looking at what the university overall says, or are you looking for a specific course or department? For graduate employability, these figures can be different depending on whether they are people employed in graduate level work only, whether they include further study, just work overall, and is this the like-for-like data if you're comparing it? So if you see a figure on one university's website, is it comparable to the figure on another university's website? So I would say yes, they can be helpful as one of many factors. They should not be the primary factor for any university, but it is something that you can use as one of your decision-making processes, and just make sure you know where that information is coming from, that it's up to date, and that you're looking at how many people were maybe involved in that survey. It doesn't tell you everything you need to know about a course, so make sure that you're speaking to students and looking at facilities and things like that as well. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Kate. Next up, we have another question for Gavin. Medicine is a very popular course at university. So how many universities can a medical student apply for?
Yeah, and this is again another great question that does come through a lot. Being from a university that offers medicine, dentistry and veterinary, the same rules apply to all of these. These are all very clinical courses that have that are very, very popular. Things like medicine, about the kind of national average is at least 10 places, 10 applicants for every one place. So it's very, very competitive, and because of that, these subjects you can only apply for 4. On your UCAS, up to 4. Your 5th UCAS choice can be used as a sort of backup. So maybe, especially if you're interested in those areas, you may also be interested in studying like a biological science or a life science here at Glasgow. So that is something you would definitely look at doing. Applying to your 4 absolute favourites, keeping your 5th option as a wee kind of backup. And that goes for dentistry and medicine and veterinary. So yeah, plain and simple, just as that.
Now we have a question for Pat from the Northern School of Art. Pat, this question is for you. How do you receive an unconditional offer?
Thanks, Megan. Not quite sure whether that means if the students already had an offer, or if it's before the whole thing starts. So I'll go through both aspects of that. Every university has got different entry requirements, so you need to check that you meet the course and university entry requirements before you bother applying. However, other factors come into it when admissions teams are looking at making decisions around the offers that are made to you, such as your existing qualifications, the qualifications you're studying for now, the references, skills and experiences that you have. You will get either a conditional or an unconditional offer, and both of those are good news. The difference simply is that with a conditional offer, you will still need to meet some requirements which you haven't met yet. That's normally because you haven't actually got exam results or something through. An unconditional offer means you've got the place and it's confirmed. However, there still might be a few little bits and pieces that need sorting out on that. Any offer you receive, though, is going to come to you through UCAS, and you'll be notified of the result of that on UCAS track after you've been made the offer, perhaps after you've had an interview. So UCAS on its website gives a full explanation of all of this, and it's a really good idea to check that out when you're registered on UCAS. I think that's all I can say on that one, Megan.
Thank you very much, Pat. Next, we're going to go back to Alex from the University of Winchester. So lots of students are going to be worried about that this year. And this is, will applicants in 2021 have lower entry requirements or special consideration?
Okay, thanks. Yeah, I'm sure a lot of people will be worried about that. I recently spoke to our head of admissions about this to get his point of view. Here's he says, in prospectuses, we've already published our entry requirements. So the best place to check for entry requirements will be the individual university websites, because obviously they can be updated. for those students that are coming through post-coronavirus, we will be mindful of the significant disruption that they've experienced as part of their course. A couple of tips that our head of admissions said was, if there is going to be a second wave in the autumn resulting in more lockdowns, we'd recommend you engage now in the virtual open days, and if universities do open, to take the chance to go and visit them when you can. And also start your research now, which obviously you're doing because you're in here doing the webinar. If you start researching your courses in universities now, that means that you can make the most of the opportunities, and then when the application's open, it's a good idea to put your application in, possibly not too near the deadline, just in case the university's locked down again and there's the disruption for staff trying to work at home. So I hope that helps, but don't worry, we know that you're going through this, and we will obviously take that into consideration when we're making our offers. Hand you back to Megan.
Thank you very much, Alex. So this is the last of our pre-prepared questions, and then we'll be going straight into questions from you guys, both on Zoom and YouTube. So this is a question for Kate from the University of Huddersfield. How do you know what university is right for you?
So yeah, just a question there. It is really quite a difficult one. There's so many things you can consider. Obviously, all the things we've talked about today are different things that you can consider when knowing whether a university is right for you. I'd recommend thinking about what you as an individual are looking for from your university, first of all. Whether it's a good level of student support, if you think you might benefit from this, a strong research record if you're wanting to consider further study or PhD study, or easy access to world-class sports facilities if this is a really important part of your life. Priorities are different for everyone, so know what your priorities are, and that will be your first step to knowing which university is right for you. The more research you do, the more sure you can be about this as well. All the factors we've talked about today, the course being right for you, it's taught in the way that you want it to be, it's in an environment that you like, it can teach you in ways that you'll find helpful. Consider all of these especially. Talk to staff and students, see if you click with them, obviously online at the moment, but again, as Alex was just saying, face-to-face when you get the opportunity. We're not sure when that opportunity will arise at the moment, but we would love to be talking to you through virtual channels as well. Lots of universities will have options to do that online, so have a chat to them, see if you're clicking with the students, if the staff are saying things in ways that you understand. It is really recommended to try and visit a university. Hopefully in the future you'll be able to do this again, whether we'll have the larger open day events or it'll be slightly smaller ad hoc visits. In the meantime, virtual tours and videos can really help. Some people get a real gut feeling when visiting, so if you try and absorb yourself in some of those online videos and the environment, you might start to feel that gut feeling as well. As I said in my presentation earlier, make yourself a shortlist based on factors that you can look at online and visit those virtual open days. And when we are able to do so again, make a plan to visit just a couple of universities. Hopefully you'll be in a position by that point where you've had a lot of time to think about all these factors and just have a few that you're deciding between at the end of it. And then you'll have made a really informed decision.
Thank you very much, Kate. So now we are going to go to some of our questions from the chat today. Thank you very much to everyone who has been watching and submitting questions. We love to see them, and we hope we can help with any answers that you need. The first question is going to be to Gavin from the University of Glasgow. For a lot of students, going to university is the first time they've lived away from home. It's a really big step to take in their future. So how can you go about finding more information about the student support, the welfare services available, support for mental health at the different universities that you're choosing from?
Cool, yeah. So again, this is something that universities across the UK are very much used to having students coming across from across the UK and across the world as well. So most unis are set up phenomenally for this. A really good thing to do is jumping on the university's websites. Everyone always says this, but it's true. That's where you'll find a lot of the information, especially if a university is maybe doing a virtual open day coming up as well. I know for ourselves, we just ran a virtual offer holders day, and we actually had our own students there answering questions and telling students about what they actually did during their time at university. So attending these virtual open days, asking these sorts of questions to the staff and hopefully to the students as well, that they can kind of give you an honest answer to what's actually happening. But universities nowadays have fantastic student services that look at kind of mental health, any disabilities you've got as well. They'll cover all this normally on their websites. But again, open days, whether it be virtual or physical, if we're lucky enough to have them, this is a really good time to ask those questions. I know at Glasgow we absolutely have a phenomenal student service team that actually help you, work with you from before you even get to university all the way up to even the career service, works with you years after you've graduated. So that's not just a Glasgow-based thing, that is going to be a lot of places as well. So yeah, just make use of what the universities have, find all that information on the website and the prospectuses and at their virtual offer holders days and open days.
Thank you very much, Gavin. Next up, we have a question for Pat. Now, when you're applying to study a creative subject at university, it's usually advised that you have a portfolio alongside your application. So do you have any advice on creating a portfolio for our students, Pat?
Thanks, Megan. Okay, a portfolio for a start doesn't need to be a physical thing. It can be digital. It can be physical, it can be made up in a whole host of different ways. So firstly, don't always worry about format. In terms of portfolio and what needs to be in it, one of the key things we want to look at is the range of creative work that you're capable of doing and that you've got experience of. So what are your drawing skills like? What are your graphic skills like? Your painting skills or your 3D skills? We need to see a range there coming from you. And perhaps just as importantly, in fact, definitely just as importantly, for a portfolio, you need to show us the whole process that you've gone through to produce a piece of work. So we need to see it from the inspiration, the brief that you were given, how you developed a piece of work towards a final product. And that means seeing annotation as well, seeing your thought processes as you were going through things. We want to use the portfolio as something you can talk to us around. Often in an interview, the portfolio is a useful thing for you as a student because that's your prompt. When we're asking you questions, when we're talking to you, you can use it as a physical or digital on your tablet prop in actually talking to us. So you can point us the way you went through a work in progress. So we're interested in process. We're interested in what inspires you as a creative. My advice would be choose a few separate projects where you can go through that process of developing the piece because it's the story of your creative practice that we're interested in. I hope that was helpful.
That was great. Thank you very much, Pat. Now, the traditional way of choosing a university usually requires having a physical prospectus. It's a little bit more difficult to get hold of them at the moment. So Alex, could you talk us through how to get hold of a physical prospectus or how to get hold of a digital prospectus if you're no longer able to get one of those?
Okay, yeah, of course. Good question. I think all universities will be slightly different on this. If you go onto the website and type in prospectus, you may be able to go and view a PDF version, which you can download. But what I would say is that prospectuses, because they're printed at one point in time, if there are any updates to courses, you'll find those on the website. And indeed, because of the nature that websites can be obviously massive and prospectuses are limited, I would actually suggest you look at websites instead of prospectuses, because you can quite often drill down to quite detailed course information, and on course pages on websites you're likely to be able to see exactly what modules you're going to be offered, how each module is taught and assessed. So if, for example, you have if you feel that you're a lot better at exams, or if you're a lot better at coursework, you'll be able to see on websites for each course whether you're going to be assessed on exams or coursework or practical work, or a whole variety of different ways of assessing courses. So don't worry too much about not being able to get hold of a physical copy of a prospectus, and head over to university websites instead. Okay, I'll hand back to Megan.
Thank you very much, Alex. Next, we have a question for Kate. Now, it's always a worry for students that they're not going to reach their target grades on results day, and then they're not going to know what to do next if they don't get into that university that they've chosen. So what should you do if you fail to reach your target grades? What should you do if you want to get into another university or pick a different course?
Okay, so first of all, if on results day you don't reach your target grades or the entry requirements for the universities that you've chosen, the first thing to check is whether you've been offered a place at your first or insurance choice university anyway. Whilst your target grades and your the entry requirements given and your offers will give you a guarantee of a place. So if your offer was for 3Bs and you got those 3Bs at A level, you'd be guaranteed a place. After reviewing everyone's results, universities can sometimes offer you a place anyway based on whatever grades you did get, your personal statement and any other information if they don't have as many people with those grades. It might be that it's been a particularly tough year and students have achieved slightly less than expected. So there's a chance you may still be able to get into your first or insurance choice university, even if your grades aren't quite what you expected. However, if that's not the case and your offers are declined from your universities, then the way to get into other universities for that year would be through clearing. So once you've received your results and you know that you're not holding any other offers, you're able to look on the UCAS website to find clearing vacancies. Clearing vacancies will be courses that still have places available. Clearing will be taking place as usual on the 13th of August this year, despite the slight difference in the way that grades are being awarded. So you can search on UCAS and find out which course universities have course vacancies, then you can call them up, have a chat to someone about that course, and you don't have to make the decision immediately as to if you want to attend that university. You'll be able to have a chat to them, they'll be able to offer you a place if they're able to do so, and then you'll be able to take some time to think about whether that's going to be the right option for you. Usually, we'd also offer you the opportunity to visit if you wanted to before accepting that offer. However, it's hard to say whether that will be possible this year. Either way, you will be given time to consider. It's usually relatively easy, and there will be vacancies across different subjects and different universities. Things that will be more difficult will be courses such as medicine and teaching, some of the more competitive courses. You might not find as many vacancies on clearing, but you may be able to find places in lots of other universities as well. So it's something not to panic about. You will be able to find alternatives if you don't achieve your predicted grades. Obviously, there is also the option of taking a year out, but don't rush into that option without thinking about what you're going to do with that year. Otherwise, you might find that you feel that you've just wasted the year. So have a look at what's available in clearing, but take your time to make your decision, is my main advice.
Thank you very much, Kate. So we're going to have one more question for each panellist now, and we're going to start with Gavin. Gavin talked a lot about different joint honours courses, which are a really great choice if you're struggling to choose between two different courses that you're really passionate about. So Gavin, do you have to pay double for joint courses, and do your two courses have to be linked at all?
Yep, I'm glad so many folk have asked this question as well. I've been rifling through the Zoom questions as well. Essentially, when you're studying a joint honour system in Scotland, it's part of a flexible degree structure. So if you're studying subjects within the arts, social sciences and sciences at Glasgow, you'll get a chance to study more than one subject. So that's when you'll study like the 3 subjects like I showed you in my slides. It doesn't mean you need to pay for 3 whole courses. This is all part of your 1 degree. The reason we do this, it means you get a really good broad degree, a really good broad education. So say if you want to do like philosophy, politics and economics, you get a really good broad education that then also they complement each other quite nicely. when you narrow that down to either 1 or 2 subjects, that's when you really kind of focus on it. When it comes to deciding which ones are available to pick, like combine together, Scottish universities like Stirling, they have a ridiculously wide kind of pool that you can pick subjects and combine really quite odd subjects together. Other universities are a bit more strict. So at Glasgow, you're more likely, if you're doing like an arts degree, you'll study 2 subjects from the College of Arts. That could be like a language and say history, along with maybe 1 social science. That could be something like politics. So it tends to be within the kind of right subject areas. If you are studying a subject like medicine, dentistry, veterinary, you won't be able to do a wee bit of French or something on the side, and vice versa. If you're doing French, you will not be doing a wee bit of dentistry. That would be downright dangerous, and it'd be terrifying, but that's not an option for you. So if you want to see what options are available, like the University of Glasgow website has, under each subject, go down to the degrees and UCAS choices, you can actually apply to a joint honour subject, which essentially guarantees you 2 subjects. You then pick up your 3rd once you get to Glasgow or any other Scottish university. So check that out for what combinations are possible. As I said, we've got like computing science with Greek, which is quite a niche one, but yeah, loads of different things. Normally they do tend to be quite similarly linked.
Great, thank you very much, Gavin. Next up, we have a question for Pat from the Northern School of Arts. So lots of students may consider taking a gap year if they're looking to further their interests outside of school, if they're looking to do some more experience, if they're looking to get some more money. Will taking a gap year make it more or less likely that you'll get into a good university?
Thanks, Megan. I think the simple answer to that one is that no, it shouldn't make a difference. It may give you more experience that you can talk about in terms of your personal statement and that you can use when you come to an interview or to an audition. But I don't think it intrinsically gives you a better chance. That's got to be something that is down to your choice. So it can be beneficial. It can be interesting, particularly in some of the creative areas where you might go off and get experience working for a creative company or perhaps acting or doing something like that in a gap year. That's great. And that will certainly give you a bit of an edge when you're applying. But other than that, no, I don't think it makes a big difference. Thanks, Megan.
Okay, thank you, Pat. We have a question for Alex from the University of Winchester now. So when you're searching for a university, you're often really pushed towards the good things about each university. So each university obviously wants to give you the best impression of themselves. What can you do if you're trying to look for some truer elements of universities? So where can you go if you want to get a real impression of what it's like to be at that university, rather than just following information on university websites and things like that?
Okay, yeah, great question. I always think that asking current students is a really good way of going about that and finding out what they think about student life, particularly if you can find one that is doing the course that you're interested in. And a good way of starting is just by saying, what's the best thing about your course? What's the worst thing? And what is the best and worst thing about being a student at this university? And as much as we all brief our student ambassadors and tour guides to give a positive view of the university, they are very good at being honest. So do engage with current students on all kinds of different platforms like Uni Buddy or virtual events, and ask them. There are other websites and forums, so perhaps if you pop into a search engine student view of that university, then you may well find some online content that's already there. I hope that helps.
That's great. Thank you very much, Alex. And now this is our last question of the day, and this one is for Kate from the University of Huddersfield. So do campus universities usually have accommodation on campus, and do you have to stay in your accommodation for 3 years or more?
Okay, so this varies between universities. A lot of campus-based universities will have some of their student accommodation on campus. I would say Huddersfield, as I mentioned earlier, is an exception to this. We are sort of campus-based, but we don't have it on there, but some universities will do. Universities like York, for example, where they have a campus a little further from the city centre, will have lots of accommodation options on site. Even at a campus university though, you won't be required to live on campus necessarily. You can choose to live on campus in your first year, your second year, or sometimes your third year as well. But you will be able to live privately as well if you want to. Now, some universities may want you to move out after your first year, but generally you are able to stay on campus all 3 years if you want to, but the majority of students may choose to choose alternative accommodation somewhere else after their first year. So this is something, as I said earlier, you need to check with the individual universities what their rules are and what sort of accommodation that they have. But generally, universities that are campus-based will have will have some accommodation on site. Most people might choose to live there in their first year if they're living on site, and they may move out in second and third year, but there are massive variants on this. Yeah, you can choose to live there all 3 years at a lot of places, or you can choose to live off site for all 3 years. It's not mandatory to live on campus.
Thank you very much, Kate. If you do have any more questions about life at university, so things such as accommodation, then we will be running a webinar dedicated to this on the 27th of May. So that's a few Wednesdays time. So be sure to tune in then if you'd like to catch some more information about what it's like to be an undergraduate student. Okay, so we have run through all of our questions for today, unfortunately. If you haven't had your question answered or you have something else that you'd like to ask, then of course feel free to go onto our panelists' websites and there'll be contact details there. If you've registered for our Zoom webinar, then you will also receive an email straight into your inbox with their contact details and their websites as well, so you can just quickly pop onto there and ask away. Our apologies if we weren't able to answer your question, but we'll be back next week with another webinar Wednesday, so we'd love to see you again then. Next week, the University of Roehampton will be taking you through how to construct the perfect personal statement for your UCAS application. This is a really big part of applying to university, so if you are thinking about doing that next year, then definitely check out our webinar next week. You can sign up on our website for the Zoom session or subscribe to our YouTube. Make sure to press the bell to get your notifications, and you'll be able to view the live stream on there too. Okay, you can also head over to our website, that's www.ukuniversitysearch.com, and click the orange register button in the top right hand corner if you'd like to sign up for our emails. These emails are really great. You'll get some into your inbox really regularly. You'll get updates about our webinars. You'll be reached out to from different universities. We also have lots of updates coming through there about COVID-19 and how we're working to support you with things on our website, such as the virtual open day calendar. Okay, I'm sure you'd like to join me in saying a massive thank you to all of our panelists today. So we had Alex Hickman from the University of Winchester, we had Kate Filliman from the University of Huddersfield, Gavin Quinn from the University of Glasgow, and Pat Chapman from the Northern School of Art. Our apologies if you were experiencing any technical difficulties today, but we hope we managed to iron them out for you in the end and get you lots of brilliant information too. Thank you very much for joining us today. I hope to see you again in the future. And from all of us at UK University Search, stay home and stay safe.